All right, everybody. We'll get started with the presentation there today for Antarctica. So, of course, I'm coming at this virtually. I can't see you, so I'm just going to presume everybody's going to take their seat and get ready to listen about this presentation because this was a really cool trip. This was a once in a lifetime one, and I just came back from it only a few months ago. So you're one of the first audiences that I've had a chance to speak to about it. Anyway, let me get going with the presentation. This is me down there, continent number 7 in Antarctica. And my name, if you don't know me already, my name is Dave Wentworth, and I'm a travel agency owner. And my travel agency, it's online. You can find my website at destinationwhatever.com. And I like to say that I like to share the love of a travel. Let's share the love of travel together and rekindle the travel agent relationship. Yes, everybody can just book their things, but do you have the knowledge? Do you want to go to Antarctica with somebody who's been to Antarctica? That's me. 7 continents and 50 countries. All right, so today's presentation will be going for about 45 minutes, and I've got a lot of pictures and I've got some great information about going to Antarctica. Maybe you're wondering, well, how can you even get to Antarctica in the first place, and what's required to go to Antarctica? I'll answer those things. Also, I'll talk a little bit about myself, what I did down there a day to day in Antarctica. I'll show you some pictures of the ship that I went on. It's really cool, and it's just won some great awards for its environmental stewardship. And then, if you are interested, I will give you some information on what it would be like to book a trip to Antarctica and some info if you want to keep in touch. A little bit about who I am. I've actually been on the board for Moose Jaw Museum and Art Gallery. I've been doing these presentations for the Moose Jaw Museum and Art Gallery for a number of years. I just love coming in virtually to talk about my travels. But as I said, hello, hello. My name is Dave Wentworth. And as a travel agency owner, I go the extra mile as a travel educator. I believe that we need to know about places in order to go to them. You can't consider things that you don't know exist out there. And so I really aim to bring that whatever factor. I love remote islands, places you didn't know existed, styles of travel that you might not know existed. And so certainly that appeals to curious travelers, people who want to explore the world authentically. And I believe that travel should not come in bulk. And what I mean by that is I aim to help people connect with small group tours and small ship cruising. So I know when we say tours or cruises, people might think the large bus tours or big cruise ships. That's not what I'm about. And certainly you'll see when we look at the ship that goes to Antarctica, only small ships that operate in an environmentally sustainable way can go over to Antarctica. Anyway, I'm educated, I'm accredited, I have 15 years of experience full time. That's over 30,000 hours. This is not a side hustle for me. This isn't another one of my projects. This is what I do. Like Dolly Parton said, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. But I did take some time off to go to Antarctica. So why did I go? That was a question that a lot of people asked me, especially as I was getting close. And honestly, if you had asked me a few days before I went to Antarctica, I don't really know why I went. I suppose it was a chance that I had to go to continent number 7. And I do a podcast called The Ship Less Traveled. And I'll give you information about that again at the end to remind you. But if you go back a couple of episodes in The Ship Less Traveled, I was doing a podcast with my podcast partner. She's over in England. And we were trying to unpackage that very question. Why was I going to Antarctica? And then we also had a recording just after I got back from Antarctica. And sometimes those moments just before we go on a trip or just when we get back from a trip, we're really speaking authentically as well. We're really letting you know exactly how we feel. But I think it did come down to the idea that it was a chance to terminate continent number seven. In that way, Antarctica was on my list. I'm not a lover of cold things. I'm not a lover of the outdoors, but I do love geography and I love pushing myself to the limit. So again, I had to get down to Antarctica. So the route that I took to Antarctica, it was a package that it starts and ends in Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina. So I just had to fly down to Argentina. And in the route, they include a charter flight from Buenos Aires down to Ushuaia. That's about 3 hours each way. Argentina is a very lengthy country. And then from Ushuaia, you get right onto the ship. It's 2 days across the Drake's Passage and 2 days back across the Drake's Passage. So, 4 days are going to get eaten up there. And then the rest of the time, you're exploring the Antarctica Peninsula. So getting off the plane in Ushuaia, the ship is actually in the foreground. It's a small ship. I'll have some closer pictures. But this is Ushuaia, the southernmost city in the world. And to fill up some time, we went for some nature hikes in Patagonia. We had a lunch. But a little later that afternoon, we got right down to the moment we all came for, which was embarking for Antarctica. I don't care if you've been on one cruise or if you've been on like 1,000 cruises. There is nothing more exciting than boarding a cruise for Antarctica. For some people, this might be the only type of cruise you do because you want to get to Antarctica. And of course, as a travel professional, people talk about the flights into Antarctica. You can fly in now and skip the Drake's Passage. Call me old fashioned. I believe that going across the Drake's Passage, it's a right. You must go across the Drake's Passage. So yeah, this was embarking. Just behind this metal screen is the port. You just basically walk behind the screen and walk up to your ship. There's a couple of ships in today. Ushuaia is busy at this time of year for travel to Antarctica. So I went in early December. Cruises to Antarctica will start around November. They're going to go to about March, kind of around this time of year. They're going to start wrapping up. That's the season for Antarctica. And within that season, there are two periods. The first season from the beginning, from again, let's say November, right up until about January. That's the beginning season. That's when you're going to get the long day, 24-hour daylight. Everything is really fresh. It's white. The landscapes are great. If you want to see beautiful landscape, and you'll see that in my pictures, you want to go at the beginning. And if you go towards the end of the season, if you were to go right about now or in the last couple of weeks, still a great time, but the birds have been living all over it. Of course, once the birds have gotten to the snow, it doesn't look so fresh. We all know what dirty snow looks like. We live in Canada. So you won't get the landscapes perhaps, but you'll get a lot of juveniles if you're into seeing little penguins and little birds and little everything. You'll get that at this time of year. So geographically, when we get on the ship, there's a lot of GPS, there's a lot of information to tell us exactly where we are. Here we are leaving Ushuaia. We're going to sail out towards the east. We're going to head around the Cape Horn and basically enter the Drake's Passage for a 2 days crossing. So I'm going from South America over to the Antarctic Peninsula. This is the quickest way to get over there. Again, the 2 day crossing. And the cruise I did, and most cruises will explore this area. Some cruises in February and March will come down to the Weddell Sea. These take longer. And I would love to go back to Antarctica and do a Weddell Sea cruise. Another way you can get there from New Zealand and Australia, there are some cruises that go from Christchurch and Hobart, and they're going to go down into the Ross Sea down in this area. Those take quite a while. It's much further to go from New Zealand and Australia to Antarctica. So I like the South America route because it is the quickest. It gets you right down there. I also just want to point out to this logo in green, the International Association of Antarctica Tour Operators. The cruise I went with was with HX on the Fridtjof Nansen, and I like to help people get on cruises that are with this association. This allows them to visit Antarctica responsibly, get landings. There are larger cruise companies that are not a member of this that are doing cruises that basically drive by Antarctica, and you'll get to see it from the cruise ship, but you actually won't get off the cruise ship. That makes for a really long cruise, and I think it's a pity to go all that way and not get onto Antarctica. So let's talk about the Drake's Passage. Here I am heading over. I'm mustering a smile, but I will be honest with you. The Drake's Passage was difficult for me. And I like being on the water. I live next to the ocean. I never have experienced water quite like this. Antarctica, from a scientific point of view, is different than the Arctic. The Arctic is an ocean and it's surrounded by land. It's surrounded by Siberian Russia and Northern Europe and Greenland and Canada and Alaska, and it's water. Antarctica is a piece of land that is surrounded by ocean, and so all the oceans of the world can basically mix and slosh, and it's like an old-timey washing machine just going back and forth with the agitator. So that's what can make the water a little bit extra for the Drake's Passage. And so the top deck, the sun deck, was closed due to bad weather. And that's a picture I took from the restaurant. I didn't eat for the first day. I had seasickness. My person I was traveling with, she also experienced seasickness. It wasn't great, but we were, of course, really committed to going to Antarctica. There was no turning back. But yeah, that was the Drake's Passage. Coming back, I will just say that I had a smoother crossing on the Drake's Passage, but I did find it psychologically a little bit different. And I point that out to people because when we sailed away from Antarctica, the experience is done. And yet the airport is 2 days away on the cruise. So you have to still stick it out to get back to Ushuaia. So it was great that it was calm and everything, but it was just a bit of a different experience. Here's a picture of me just on deck. You can see those waves. These waves are about 4 to 5 meters waves. And then eventually we finally got to Antarctica. They announced, and you can see a little bit in the background. And this, mind you, was like at 11:30, maybe even a little later at night, that the first glimpses of Antarctica were coming into view. And then the water got good. It was really flat, and we had ideal sailing conditions when we were going around Antarctica. I'm so happy. So I'll get into my day to day in Antarctica. I'll show you my ports of call. But first, who goes to Antarctica? Only 0.00004% of the world's population has visited Antarctica. But I do think it is interesting to point out because I am fascinated by the sociology of travel, the anthropology of travel. Why do we go to places the way we go to them? But humans are going there more. And in the 1990s, there was only about 8,000 visitors a year, and now it's up to about 120,000 visitors to Antarctica. On average, about 1,800 Canadians per year go and participate on tourism to Antarctica. And in my experience as a travel agency owner, it skews more Western. So I know I'm speaking to an audience in Saskatchewan, but Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, BC, those residents really seem to like Antarctica cruises out of Canadians. But we're not in the top five. Those countries would be the USA, China, Australia, the UK, and Germany. And it appeals to the following types of people. There's like five types. There's academic people who want to go to it. There's adventure travelers. I think I'm in the first two categories. I'm a mix of those two things. There are people that can afford it. A trip to Antarctica does have a price tag to it. Retirees, because they have the time and they have the money. And also, I think they've been to a lot of other places. So now they're looking for Antarctica. And then hobbyists, birders, photographers. I booked somebody once who is into ham radio, if you've ever heard of that. So all sorts of people that have amateur interests in different things, and could be whale watching. All these things can be done in Antarctica. So getting ready for it as we're crossing the Drake's Passage, there are a few things that you need to do. Of course, you have 2 days on the ship. The first in the upper left, we had to get debriefed on just going to Antarctica and what was expected, and that we had to wear rubber boots that they were going to provide, which brings me to the picture below that. I'm down in the mud room here getting sized with rubber boots, and those are all included on the cruise. I didn't have to bring anything, but you sign out a pair of rubber boots for the cruise. And also, you have to vacuum everything that you take into Antarctica that you want to wear. So, if you have a couple of hats in mind, I had a vastitude of hats. If you have, sweaters, pants, whatever, all that needs to be vacuumed off. They do not want to introduce any seeds or soils or biological elements to the Antarctica ecosystem. Also, I was doing an activity for camping in Antarctica. So there was a mandatory workshop for that. And my friend was doing the sea kayaking. So there was a workshop for that. So before you can book these extra activities, you have to take the workshop. And so during the cruise over, that's when a lot of that would be held. We're so happy because we are out of the Drake's Passage. We are sailing in Antarctica, taking pictures from the balcony of our cabin, AM views, going down for breakfast. By the way, the food was exquisite. I have some pictures towards the end to show you what I ate in Antarctica. But just looking out these floor to ceiling windows and looking at Antarctica right there, and we're getting ready now to do our first landing. And so this is probably late afternoon. They divide everybody into groups of about a dozen, and you're named after an animal. So you could be a whale or a petrel or various skua. All of them are named after Antarctica animals. And so you listen for your group to get paged and you go down to the mudroom. And that way they're only taking over a few people at a time. And this was the Seven Sisters. You can see the chain of mountains behind me has seven peaks. That's where it gets its name. And here we are seeing the zodiacs. We're just taking this picture from our balcony. They're getting ready to take us over to our first landing point in Antarctica. And that's called Des Moines Point. Now, again, I've been doing travel for a long time. I never really understood an Antarctica cruise until I went on it. I always thought that you would just kind of sail around, and when they would see an area where it was appropriate for them to make a landing, they would do that. And that was wrong. There's actual ports of call. These are old research centers or transit hubs, anything that has to do with the human story of exploring Antarctica. And I didn't know that there was going to be a human history to Antarctica when I went down there. I thought it was just going to be a lot of white and ice and penguins, of course. Here are my feet making their first footsteps on Antarctica. This is it, folks, continent number 7. And I'm showing you those rubber boots that you're going to wear on every single landing. Also, the blue jacket that's provided by the cruise line, you get to take that home. That's a really nice windbreaker. Temperatures in Antarctica for these landings were between 3 degrees and 8 degrees when we would go out. It was warm, especially you start walking around, you're unzipping that windbreaker, and I would just have a hoodie and some, taking off my hat. Well, you'll see pictures of me throughout. So before you go out onto Antarctica, the expedition team will go ahead and prepare a landing site for you. They'll prepare a trail. And if they make markings with these flags, it does not mean the amazing races in town. It means that you can't go any further. And behind here is a penguin colony. And so this basically gives you communication as to how far you're able to go. And you just kind of follow the trail. And here we are walking on the trail. We walked up one way and then we're walking back towards that orange hut with the Seven Sisters in behind us. All sorts of eerie, creepy colors. And I just shoot these pictures with my iPhone. I'm not like a professional photographer. It's just Antarctica photographs really well. And here we are at that orange hut. This thing had just got a coat of paint. And here we are inside, and it gives you an idea of what these people would have been like who would have overwintered here. There's their bunks in the back. There was packets of dried milk, but it was very barren. I wouldn't want to spend a winter there. And we're getting ready to return to the Zodiacs. These landings are about an hour and a half in length. There's a little penguin on the rocky beach, just making noises. And I will tell you that penguins smell. They smell like marine in a really bad way, marine and poop. It's just not a flattering smell. And so somebody asked me, they're like, what does Antarctica smell like? In some ways, it's like clean snow, it's totally pristine. And then you catch a down drift of penguins. It's not great. And then you get back on the ship again with biosecurity. You've got to step through this machine that has these high powered, high intensity scrubbers. You press a button and they'll scrub your boots and spray water on you. And again, that's going to clean the boots. You got to do that every time you make a landing. Another way that you can experience Antarctica, and so typically in a day we would have a landing and we'd have a Zodiac cruising, and so they would call you down your group, you'd head down, you'd get into the Zodiac. We're not going to make a landing here. We're just going to cruise around. We're going to see the ice. We're going to be in the Zodiacs. But this is really cool because it lets you get close to things that you can't get close to on the land, like this penguin colony. We were able to see that from a whole different perspective. They're jumping in the water. They're sitting on their eggs like this one. The females and the male take equal responsibility, and basically when one's sitting on the egg, the other one's out in the water feeding itself, and they just cycle back and forth between those things. But it just their biggest thing, their most important thing is just to raise that egg. And even still, there's not a high survival rate with these eggs, so they got to make sure everyone counts. And then coming back into the ship after we're done, we'll have more scenic Zodiac cruising, but this shows you what the mudroom looks like. This is a bit of a traffic jam, a few of the Zodiacs coming back at once. I love this picture. I took this after my first day was complete in Antarctica. I was just on my balcony. It was like 11:45 at night, and this was the color of the sky. And I just love everything about the composition of this picture. This is Antarctica, just lights on, doing its thing, looking good all the time. The next morning, there's a morning sky. Again, blue skies, great water. The white is popping. And we've moved over to another area to explore. And here we are going to Brown Station, which is a former Argentinian research station. And there's a walking trail they've prepared to go up the side of that rock. This place was rampant with penguins. I loved it, even if they're a little bit smelly. They're just oh so adorable. And there they are just bouncing along. And of course, they have their own highways, their paths that they groove through the snow. And so sometimes you have to step over those. And they would always have an expedition guide at those points to basically direct us, the human traffics, because the penguins, they have the right of way. And here they are heading down to the water. Here I am at the top of that mountain. You can see the research facility behind us. This was really cool point because you could hear a lot of ASMR, a lot of sounds of gnashing ice and avalanche and just all sorts of sounds happening. Whales coming to the surface and blowing their blowholes. Like it was just a symphony of noises. And so Antarctica, in a way, it was really quiet and really still, and yet there's a lot of nature just happening all the time. It's so special. This is a type of ice. There's like seven types of ice. I can't remember which one this is, but they do teach you these things on the cruise. But when we were sailing around, they would take pieces of the ice out of the water, and we could hold them and we could see them. This one's really clear. And talking about noises in Antarctica, when you're doing the Zodiac cruising, they'll cut the engine, and so you sail in silence. You can hear this noise that kind of sounds like this is such a bougie way to refer to it, but the noise of champagne, just like the bubbles, like psst, and that noise is little bits of oxygen that are froze in the ice that are releasing at that moment all around you. And so, again, it's just another cool thing about Antarctica that makes it so special. And this is another type of example of ice that they plucked out. And this one, it's dimpled. And of course, you can't see through it. Okay, so I signed up for open air camping in Antarctica, and what I mean by that is the little black sleeping bag that you see behind you in the little dugout trench. That was where I camped for the night. There is also the option to do it in a two-person tent, but my friend and I signed up to do it in the bivy bag. And I don't go camping, so like to do camping in Antarctica in this way, this was a real leap outside of my comfort zone. And maybe in this picture, I'm thinking, what the heck am I doing camping in Antarctica? If you are curious about what the facilities are camping in Antarctica, this is the commode. So one of those bins has clean wipes, and the other one with the other red lid and the black bag, that's for dirty wipes. And everybody can sit down and do your business. No number two, please. The ship is behind us, and we were out on this campsite from about 8 p.m. until about 4:30, no, more about 5:30 a.m. That we got back onto the ship. So a full night camping in Antarctica. There's all of the open air camping, just kind of a full view. And again, this is like, I don't know, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and it's light. Like, I didn't sleep out there. And that wasn't necessarily to do with comfort. I think I could have got comfortable enough. It's just, it was so bright, even with the zipper up over my face, with the sleeping bag. It was still so much light permeating through that it was difficult to sleep. But there I am doing my best to get my 40 winks camping in Antarctica. And here I am in the morning. And when you're done, not only, of course, do you have to undo your campsite, but you have to fill in the trench. You have to put the snow back in. And if you've ever experienced shoveling snow at 5 o'clock in the morning in Antarctica after it's been frozen solid all night and you have to chip it apart, darling, that is just an experience you must do in your lifetime. But truly, you must leave it back the way you found it. You can't leave Antarctica untouched. And as we were going back to the Zodiacs to go back to the ship, there was a Weddell seal just laying on the rocks, having kept guard for us all night long with the penguins and more ice. And I can tell you, this type of ice is Brazil ice when it gets slushy like that. Our next area of scenic cruising was the Melchior Islands. Love this one, just a floating iceberg with a bunch of penguins. I think I took this one through the windows at lunch. This stuff literally happens when you're on your ship, just having your lunch and getting ready. And here we are doing a scenic cruise, and this area was so abundant for whales. My friend who did the sea kayaking, they got incredibly close to whales a few times. But this one, there's two whales you might be able to see. Two whales just doing their thing between us in the Zodiac and the ship over there. More curious ice formations, this one making a full moon and an archway, but also a very unique dimpling of the ice. This was a unique moment. There's two ships in HX's fleet that are sister ships. They're like twin sisters. And we ran into our twin sister down there one night, and they announced that. Again, to give you a perspective of the time here, it's like 10:30 p.m. And I think at that point, you start almost losing sense of what time it is. You just kind of go with the flow. More great landscape, mountainous landscape, penguins coming over the black basalt rocks. A Weddell seal just laying there doing its thing. I love this cruise line as well because we have a lot of female expedition leaders and zodiac leaders. And of course, I'm wearing my Santa hat because I was there in December. And then another fun spot was called Danko Island. We stopped there. Tons of penguins, of course, in the background. And if you don't get the point already, there are penguins at every stop you're going to do in Antarctica. This is where my friend had an opportunity to do her sea kayaking. So that they're doing their sea kayaking around the ice. And I went for a hike to go up the hill that they had prepared, the expedition guides. And so here I am taking my picture from the top. And again, the landscape behind us, those clouds meeting up against the mountains and the ice and the purity of everything. It to say Antarctica is magical, it's just one word, and I honestly don't have the words for it. And here's a picture of me doing ready to do my polar plunge moment with a penguin right there. I kind of wanted to do the polar plunge just to say I did it, so I was going to plunge no matter what. But the fact that a penguin showed up to be there, that was really cool for me. and here I am running in. So a lot of times, they picture polar plunges off the ship. That's really great on Instagram. There are so many variables that sometimes it cannot be offered. So this is typically another way that you can guarantee yourself a polar dip is to run into the water, and they do provide a swimming it's more than a swimming shoe, it's kind of like a swimming booty, and you can put that boot on and run in because there are some rocks there, and yeah, run in and take your plunge and do your thing. And I probably made a scream that was you could have probably heard it across the entire southern hemisphere. Now, our final port of call on this cruise, and I love this one. This was one of my, I keep saying this was one of my favorites. This one really stands out in a number of ways. And I didn't realize how lucky I was to have got to Deception Island until I was catching up with somebody about a week ago. And I know she had been on a cruise to Antarctica years before, and they weren't able to get to Deception Island. Deception Island is a very interesting ship's entryway. It's like a croissant. It's at the top of a volcano. And so only part of it is emerged up through the water. And so it leaves this opening. And then the rest of the island, it's like a croissant. And so the water has to be just right. The wind has to be right. So many factors have to be right in order for the ship to nimbly be able to get in and into Deception Island. But what's really cool, and you might be able to see this now that I pointed out, the water is steaming. If you look to where the water meets the beach, there's steam coming off the water. And that is because this is an active volcano. It blew twice in the 1900s, but it is enough of a volcano that it is monitored, and it could erupt at any time. And the water is warmer here. Again, as you can tell, it's steaming. And what's also really cool about Deception Island, and I was so happy that this was our final stop in Antarctica, because you think it really is it going to get any better than this? I love abandoned buildings. I love sites of former human settlements. And Deception Island has the remnants of a former whaling station. So these large oil drums. And behind me, you can't see it because I'm standing in front of it, but there's one of those flags. Of course, you can't go right up to this. You can't go crawling over it. But to still see these elements of human history, of human contact in Antarctica. And of course, the penguins are there to say hello. I should point out there are three types of penguins. You are looking here at a Gen 2 penguin, and I'm going to teach you really quickly how to tell three penguins. And so maybe this will come up some night for you down at Bobby's for your bar trivia. But the orange beaks, that's a Gen 2 penguin. And then the second category, they're black and white and they have a chin strap. Those are chin strap penguins. And the third ones, they have beautiful blue eyes and they're a bit smaller. And that's an Adelie penguin. So yeah, three types of penguins. These are some Gen 2s. More of that abandoned human contact, the whaling station. I honestly don't know what's going on here. Maybe it just looks so industrial with the pipes and everything. Just left to time. And you can see some green as well behind me, some lichens. There's not really a lot of flora and fauna in Antarctica, but if you get down to the nitty gritty, there is a bit of flora and fauna that is cataloged and classified. And so this is an example of that. You're seeing little mosses, little lichens. These grow there. And I'm not an expert in the matter, but I did find it interesting that at this one site where we had more human contact over the years, it was a larger site. It was also an earlier site, probably from a time where biosecurity and monitoring those things wasn't important as it is now. Did that set the stage for the introduction of little soils and seeds that maybe would have been brought over on the shoes or on the feet of these early human contacts, of these early arrivals? That coupled with the general warmth as well, the fact that there is a volcano here, so the soil runs a little bit warmer, the water's warmer. Does that create the situation for just a little bit of growth? Because all the other sites in Antarctica were just black rocks covered with snow. Anyway, I'll have to go back to Antarctica and figure that out. I think about going back to Antarctica every single day. Just another abandoned building. This one is definitely a fixer-upper. You can see that roof probably doesn't have a lot, many years left. And also at this site, these tractor rims that are just emerging a little bit. It looks like maybe a bit of a seat there in the steering wheel, but it's just been covered over by this ashy sand over the years. I like this picture with me, but don't look at me. Look to the side because there's a antenna tower that has collapsed, that is falling into the beach, into the waves, and there's just a penguin just looking at it. So for me, this picture has this penguin, which is totally Antarctica, and the landscape tells you you're in Antarctica, and yet the antenna tower tells us that human beings are still touching Antarctica. We have to touch everything. And this is another picture of a Weddell seal as we were walking along the beach. And this one was so cute because he found a divot in the beach, and the divot, of course, perfectly kind of matches the body and gets the seal very comfortable, just there laying with our ship. And like I said, that was the last stop in Antarctica. So a few pictures now just of heading back in the ship. So heading home, here we are doing the bridge tour. This cruise line has an open bridge tour policy. However, most people are going to kind of wait for a calm day on the Drake Passage. You're not going to waste your time in Antarctica doing a bridge tour. Another cool thing that I got to do with the ship, there's a bit of shopping in Antarctica. There's no malls, there's no convenience store, no town and country is there. But what you are going to find is a gift shop on the cruise. And one of the things you can do is adopt a penguin. So, on behalf of my travel agency, destinationwhatever.com, I adopted a penguin. And this penguin, his name is Cool, and he represents all the curious travelers, all the people out there who have a curiosity for the world, for Antarctica. We're all of Cool's parents, but Cool is also part of the Port Lockery Penguin Research Fund, which this adoption goes towards, and that's a year-round British research institution down in Antarctica that conducts important research, including with penguin species. And there I am, adopting the penguin on behalf of all of us. And then Ushuaia, we're back off the cruise. Just 2 days of just killing time on the cruise. And I should also point out that with Port Lockery, there is a post office there. And so one of the things you can do on the cruise, and they sell you postcards that they'll stamp for you. So you just drop them off, filled out at reception, and then they'll post them for you. But they'll post them from Port Lockery. And so there's an actual distinctive Antarctica stamp. And so, especially if you have any friends or family back home that are stamp collectors, really cool opportunity to send them a postcard with a stamp and a post stamp, like the actual somebody banged some ink against this postcard down in Antarctica. I sent some home and they took about 10 weeks to arrive. Anyway, back in Ushuaia, we know we're in Ushuaia. Why? Because there's civilization, there's some things growing, there's this tiki, there's an airport. It's flying me back to Buenos Aires. And just like that, I'm on a flight, I'm on my way back home, just in time for Christmas. So the ship I sailed on, it is called the Fridtjof Nansen. It's named after one of the first explorers to go down to Antarctica. It's a Norwegian-owned company, HX. Everything on the ship runs in euros, the electricity euros, the currency on board euros. It's an all-inclusive cruise, so your drinks are included, your excursions are included. If you want some premium champagne, you'll pay for that. But really, you can get on this cruise with $1 and step off it with $1, and everything's going to be taken care of. And it also just recently won a Magellan Award, a Gold Award winner for Best Eco-Friendly Sustainable Cruise Ship. One of the coolest things, I could be here all day talking about their environmental innovations, but the coolest thing is where it says hybrid powered. This ship can operate on hybrid battery, which means it can go totally silent. So if you can think about those areas in Antarctica when you're sailing, you're silent, which is better for the wildlife, especially the marine life. And also, it's better for you because you don't have any ship noises. You just have the pure unadulterated noises of Antarctica coming through. If you're interested in science, the ship has it all. This is the Science Center with Zeiss. Uh, oh my goodness, I was going to say xylophones. I meant to say magnifying glasses and areas where you can learn and all sorts of bones. And these is an example of that. This is a killer whale skull and books, and the team is there to answer questions. And so you could just learn, 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 learn. Like if that's your thing. Maybe your thing, though, it's plunge pools. This one has an infinity pool. It has two hot tubs. So you're certainly going to be comfortable on this. There's also an indoor Scandinavian cedar spa with floor to ceiling windows. So you can just be sitting there, throwing some water on the hot stones, having your spa and sauna fantasy, and just looking out at the landscape. This is an example of my cabin category. This is the entry level expedition suite. So we have a balcony, we have a bit of a living room area, and the bed can be set up as one double or two twins. And I did upgrade to the hot tub suite for the last couple of days. That was something that was possible through the ship's auction, which raises money for the HX Foundation. They do work in areas the ship sails, including northern Canada and Arctic waters. And so, anyway, this was something I got for the reserve in the auction. I'm not here to give you numbers. It was for charity, darling. Wraparound deck on this thing, but best of all, a hot tub. So while I did have to kill 2 days going home across the Drake's Passage, at least I was doing it in a hot tub. Here's an example of that sauna as well. This is open for everybody, but again, just beautiful Scandinavian aesthetics, great comfort on board. They certainly didn't travel down to Antarctica like this back in the day. Food on board, we all got to eat. You're going to get your 3 meals on the ship. There's 3 restaurants. It's again an all-inclusive concept. The food is sustainable. It's nourishing. It's delicious food. I'm vegetarian, so obviously a lot of my pictures going to be vegetarian based. But my friend who I went with eats all meat and just delicious foods. Very accommodating though. If you have a gluten-free issue or lactose, whatever, they have everything signposted. They had like 19 different food accommodations on the go during this cruise. They were ready for everybody. This is an example of Lindstrom, which is the top restaurant on this cruise. That's complimentary for suite passengers, and other guests can enjoy their meals there with a cover charge. They would have there's an app that you get when you go on this thing. Every day on the app they would tell you that what you're going to get for your food the next day, so you could already be looking at menus and looking at your activities and your schedule of when your landings were going to happen. Everything was just so punctual and organized. And again, just because I was there for before Christmas, they had lots of Christmas stuff on the go. All right, everybody wants to ask, what does this thing cost? Here's an example of some pricing. A lot of expedition cruises in the expedition market are in US dollars. So you can get this thing down to as low as 87.10 for an outside cabin. The ship has no inside cabin, so you're always going to start off with a porthole. You can go up to an Arctic Superior with the balcony, or the expedition suite with the balcony, which brings in the top end restaurant, unlimited laundry, a bunch of other features. And then if you want that hot tub suite, darling, it can be yours. There's a price for that. These are double occupancy prices. This cruise line regularly does single offers. I'm really good at helping people connect with that. If you need assistance with that, you can reach out because, darling, I'm right here. I'm here to help you book your trip. I do small group tours and small ship sailing. I work with over 40 cruise lines. And here's an example of small group tours I work with. I don't charge any fees. When you book with me, it just supports my business and you get the best of both worlds. There's my website, destinationwhatever.com. That's where you can find me. Here's where you can hook up with me on social media. There's my Facebook, my Instagram, and my YouTube. I just came back from an expedition cruise with my mother to the Panama Canal in Costa Rica. Real heartwarming video there. But again, if you want to see my mother in the field, that now lives on YouTube. Check that video out. And if you'd like to travel with me, I do host some tours. I am doing the Camino de Santiago, and I have people from Moose Jaw booked on both of these. But the Camino is actually full. I do have 2 spaces left on my Kenyan safari, February of next year, especially if you want to see the animals and do some cool transportation. We're taking a train through Kenya Check that out on my website. My podcast, if you love small ship cruising, is called The Ship Less Traveled. I do that with Lorraine. She's over in England. Lots of Mrs. Doubtfire energy as we get transatlantic. And finally, I just want to say thank you for coming and hearing my presentation today on Antarctica. I hope I've inspired you, if not to go to Antarctica, just to push your limits and do whatever that is, even if it's not in travel. If you want to, I don't know, take a new hobby on this year or whatever it is that you enjoy doing, just live your life to the fullest. And if that's travel, of course, maybe you can keep me in mind. And thank you as well to the Moose Jaw Museum and Art Gallery for having me here today and creating space for this presentation. Awesome. I think we're just on time now, so I think we'll end here. But if you have any questions about Antarctica, anything I did not touch on, please, again, just reach out to me. You can find my contact on the website, destinationwhatever.com. Thanks, everybody.